fourth grade, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful, happy Easter and spring break. We are actually going to be learning about Easter and just reviewing about Easter and the things we've gone through this last week. So today I want to begin. We're looking at Luke chapter 22. We're going to talk about the Last Supper. Now, I know that earlier this year we went through Passover together, and I walked you through what Passover meant and what it was like for the Israelites to celebrate Passover. And so I want you to think about that time and the different things that we did and how we talked about that as we talk about what Jesus did, because they were celebrating the Passover at the Last Supper. So we're in Luke chapter 22. Now, verses 1 through 13. As the Passover feast of unleavened bread approached, the chief priests and other religious leaders were looking for ways to kill Jesus. Satan entered Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples. The priests agreed to pay Judas 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus. So Judas began watching for an opportunity. Then came the day for preparing the Passover lamb. Jesus sent Peter and John to find a room for the disciples to prepare and celebrate. They found the room just as Jesus had described. Remember that the word to betray here, that Judas was betraying Jesus. It means to turn against a friend. Turn against a friend. To betray. Judas Iscariot was Jesus' friend. And he betrayed him. He turned against that friend, Jesus. He had spent 3 years following Jesus. And he chose to betray him for 30 pieces of silver. 30 coins. Verses 14 through 23 continue, talking about how Judas plotted to betray Jesus. Jesus sent Peter and John to find a room for the disciples to celebrate Passover. This feast was a reminder of when God freed the Israelites from Egypt. Now, at the supper, we first see Jesus washing the disciples' feet. They're all sitting around. The dinner's on the table. And Jesus gets up, takes off his robe, wraps a towel around him, and gets a basin of water, a bowl of water, and goes to each disciple and washes their feet. Remember, most of them either wore sandals or went barefoot. There weren't cement roads. These were dusty, dirty roads. They didn't have sanitation. There was animal dung. There was human waste flowing through the streets. So, this is what they had been walking through. This job was meant for the lowest servant. B, it was humbling and gross. But Jesus did it anyways. He washed every disciple's feet to show that we need to serve. Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve. Now, as the night went on, they went through the Passover meal, eating the bitter herbs, eating the matzah and the mortar and the apple, eating the lamb. And then Jesus took the bread. Once again, like we talked about, he took that middle piece of the bread out of the 3. called the Afikomen. And he took it out and he broke it. He said, "This is my body broken for you. Take and eat." And then he took the cup, which was called the cup of redemption, remember? He took the cup. He said, "This is my blood shed for you. For the forgiveness of sins." Then Jesus talked to Peter about how, and all the disciples, about how one of them would betray him. And he even said, "Peter, you will betray me 3 times before the rooster crows." And Peter says, "No, I will never deny you." And then after they sang a hymn, they went out to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. Jesus wanted to pray for God's will. When we read in the scripture, we find that Jesus cries out and said, "Lord, if it is your will, take this cup from me. If not, then your will be done." And then Judas comes and he brings the soldiers to arrest Jesus. And later on we find that Peter follows, but he stands outside. And when he's asked, "Aren't you one of them?" 3 different times, he denies. "No, I never knew him. No, I'm not one of them. No, I don't know that man." And then the rooster crows, and he went out and wept bitterly. I want you to think about your own walk with Christ. Have you been afraid to say, "Yeah, I am a Christian. Yeah, I believe in Jesus"? Or maybe to tell a friend? It's okay. Peter was too. But Peter went from being a man who denied him 3 different times to just a few weeks later preaching the gospel to over 3,000. So I want you to finish your workbook page, and we'll continue with the Easter story tomorrow. All right, see you tomorrow.